Greetings, Minecrafters, and welcome to another delightful discussion on all things well-being. My name is Dr. Kimberly Quinn, and I am here in Medford, Massachusetts, at a very nice hotel. And they were kind enough to let me film in the breakfast area since it's all over, because it's a little bit raining and a little bit raw outside. It's still very nice, very crisp. But anyway, I want to finish the continue the topic of relationships, because I'm trying to keep these videos under 15 minutes or under, and there's so much more to say. So we're talking about, the whole loss thing, especially at this time of year. And loss at any time of year is obviously difficult, and life is full of loss. From everything from not making a sports team, being cut from that as a high schooler or in college, not making whatever, loss of all kinds of sorts of jobs. We talked about aging parents and that role changing and having experiencing that loss. And we got a lot of that going on right now with friends. Thankfully, my husband's parents are in amazing health. I mean, they're like the poster adults for healthy aging. They're absolutely adorable, although I'm not allowed to say that. My mother-in-law doesn't like when we call her adorable. She is, though. She's so cute. She's very seasonally appropriate. She's dressed to the nines, all the time. So anyway, there was all those kinds of loss, and we talked about the stages of grief, right? So there's denial and anger, followed by bargaining, depression, and then finally acceptance. And so we work through those no matter what the loss is. Even if somebody's a diabetic and loses a foot or a leg, or they're in a war situation, or so the rest. So we got into all that stuff. So now we didn't really get into the relationship loss, and there's so much of that in life in general, but especially during the holidays, that can be even harder, right? And so we have, and plus loss isn't always all bad, right? So having our young adults go off to college, the relationship changes significantly. So there's the parenting shifts, and there's a little bit of loss of, as far as having, your baby and having all the control we used to have. And we have 5, as I think many of you know, 5 young adults. We call them the Fab Five. And it is different. So there's that loss of, as far as our role in their life. I actually just did a whole workshop on this. Champlain did a family weekend. I think that's what we're calling it. Champlain weekend. Anyway, I did oh my God, it was so much fun. And the parents were incredibly interactive, and it just made it even better. It was called Teach Them How to Fish, which was all about, was exactly what we're talking about. The loss and letting out the leash, so to speak, because they still need us, but not in the same way. And that's different for them as a loss, and it's different for us as a loss. And the young adult are experiencing the loss of the comfort of home as they knew it, even though they've always got their home there. I shouldn't say always. That's too big of a word. I didn't have that. So there, obviously, statistically speaking, there are certainly a handful, let's say, or more, who have a loss in a different way because they never had that home or didn't have that home to go to. But let's say if students coming from a family where there's enough love, nobody's perfect, but enough love, that's a loss. You miss your dog, you miss dad's banana bread, your neighborhood friends, all that stuff. And parents really go through that change and that loss as well. And then there's like the bigger stuff, like recent divorces, breakups, and I think the last statistic I knew, it could be different now, but the last I knew, at least in the States, the divorce rate's up around 2/3. And so there's a lot of that. And so when the holidays come, that can complicate things, because your kids, even they're little kids, you've got to share them, and now they're at dad's, and now they're at mom's, and now they're at mom's, and now they're at the other mom's, or whatever. And it's that whole thing can be really, really tough on all ends. Or it can also be that they're young adults, and there's all this sharing, and so that can be different. Never mind entering a whole new family, new partner in a blended family situation, and it can all be just really a lot to deal with. And I certainly remember that as a kid through the divorces and everything. My situation, the backstory was already challenging as it was, and Now we're kind of trying to jump here and jump there. It actually more affected my sister than me because I was kind of out of there. I had to dip pretty quickly, but this is hard. It's all really tough, and um, losing losing partners and things like that, and now there was somebody else and the whole thing. So it goes right back to the same stages of grief. And the most important thing, especially if it comes out of left field, I have a friend um, who's sadly, this story happens a lot, whether it's man and a woman, whoever's doing it to who, or man and a man or whatever, but seemingly came out of left field. And they've been married for, I don't even know, I'm gonna guess almost as long as us, like 30 years. And he came home and said, I found somebody else. I mean, talk about, so the shock of that after 30 years, she just was, that is the word, shock. And so similar but different, obviously, to the parents who, obviously the leukemia thing is just in a place of its own. I don't even want to compare to that. What I'm comparing to is the shock value, that the instantness of it, and just being in that place of denial, like, what the heck? And she was telling me, and I, I'm just, God, obviously it's just the one side, and I actually didn't know her husband. It's a friend from college I hadn't seen in a while, and I saw her. We keep in touch, but not, it's like, here, it's not like a daily thing. We keep in touch like a couple times a year, that sort of thing. And she said, oh my God, Kim, like, in my head, we were cranking along with the young adults, and then, honey, I have something to tell you, and bang, right? So that it's not different as far as the denial thing, like, oh, this can't be real, this can't be true. And like, you wake up the next day after you got the news, and then all of a sudden it hits you again because you come out of sleep, you're like, whoa, is that real? Did that really happen? Was that a nightmare kind of thing? And so, she was telling me this, which moves into the anger, which is definitely there, right about when I was talking to her a couple times ago. And then, the bargaining thing, and then the depression, all the griefs. I actually saw her go through this stuff. And then eventually the acceptance, which takes a while, and now she's in a much better place, and she's actually dating again. This has been like over a long time, like at least several years, I would say, at least. I'm trying to think of the timeline. But it doesn't happen overnight, and this is the point. With the breakups, with the blended families, with the young adults going away to college, with all these other types of relationship issues, and also with regular friendships. Regular friendships can change. And I actually, this was a topic just Wednesday. I do a newsletter, the Mindful Times newsletter, and this is on a less deep level than the super harsh breakups and ends of really long-term relationships and things like that, is loss with friends. We're not talking about death or anything, just changes, because when we're on this life path for a long time, people grow and change, and that isn't a bad thing necessarily. It just is what it is. Sometimes it's not bad. It just, like I said, it's just how it is. You just kind of grow in different directions, and it's okay. It's okay to realize that, and to grieve that this, people I had history with, I had this, I had that, and now, and it doesn't mean to cut them off all the way either. It's like layers of an onion. It might just be that you might choose to not spend as much time with that person, and that's okay too, and to just acknowledge this loss, and you don't have to keep things exactly as they were. Sometimes it's just like a gradual life changes, growing in different directions, whatever. Sometimes people just, for whatever reason, are maybe not in the best place too, and that's important to realize, because it's important to keep good company. Really important to keep good company, because if the person isn't, lifting you up and having you, sort of supporting you and being your best self and all that good stuff, then it's time to really think about that relationship maybe changing. I'm not talking about once or twice, but if it's like long term, just a change in relationships, because it's so important to attenuate. It's like a sexy 14-karat word for pay attention. Attention to that, because when you've been on this earth long enough, it's more than likely some friendships are just going to change, and that's okay. So it comes down to stages of grief, because whenever there's loss, no matter if it's, again, child going to college, child gets married. We have two of our boys, sons, young adults, getting married, and we couldn't be happier. We could not be happier. We love both of them very much. Our new daughters, although now we're a little estrogen heavy, because that has us. We have boy, girl, girl, and now two more young women. So we're estrogen heavy right now. So yeah, but we are beyond excited, and yet I still had to talk with our son's sisters, because they also love these two young ladies who've been around for a while. Again, we're ecstatic and planning the rehearsal dinners and all the festivities and things. I had a talk with actually one of our sons recently to try to be patient with your sisters, because you're their big brother, and this is different for them. And even though we're gaining another daughter, it's a loss a little bit as far as your role, because your role is going to change. Your role in their life, you're always their big brother. That's always going to be the case forever, and it still is different because the dynamics have changed. And just to be a little bit patient with them, okay? Just a little bit patient with them and allow them to grieve. I use the word grieve, actually, and it has such a negative connotation, because we think death and wearing, black dresses and suits to funerals on rainy, misty, raw days. No, grieving is a very healthy, healing, cognitive process, and it's amazing when we attach stigmas and labels to things. You're grieving, it's instantly, we think of, like old school black veils and mourning and, people bringing covered casserole dishes to your house and stuff. No, grieving is healthy. It's so healthy. First of all, though, just like we've been saying before, or all through these episodes, we can't do what we don't know. It's about awareness. So being aware of how we feel, being aware that it is a loss. It doesn't have to just be death. Get it that it's a loss. Get it that it's hard. Get it that it's a good idea when we're going through a loss, meaning also change. If you want to swap those out, because it sounds a little easier to digest, right? To be patient with ourselves and extend love and kindness and compassion to ourselves while we adjust. Grieving is about an adjustment. It's an adjustment that leads to healing, and this is really what we're talking about. So maybe change the words. If you're kind of stuck in that old school definition of it, change the words. Instead of saying I'm grieving, say I'm adjusting. I'm adjusting to my kids getting married. I'm adjusting to making that big leap with our adult parents to an assisted living. I'm adjusting to the kids going to college. I'm adjusting, and with that change is coming healing and acceptance, and eventually enjoyment of being in a brand new, healthier, happier, again, more accepting place. Awesome. Okay, I'm just feeling good about it. I've got the rest of that out because I felt like the other one didn't have the relationships, and I feel better now. Okay, this is Kimberly Quinn signing off from the Breakfast Nook here at the hotel in Medford, Massachusetts. Have a mindful day.